And why is family so important?
They're just everything. Without family, you don't have a backbone or support.
Because you need family around. That's love.
Well, there's that old saying that you can't choose your family, you can choose your friends. I think family is most important because it's kind of unconditional. They're quick to forgive. As you reach my age, you see the mistakes you made with family. You hope they forgive. And once we're reunited physically and spiritually in that place I talked about, hopefully all will be good and forgotten.
Family is incredibly important because of the love that you share with other people and the love and support that you get from the family.
What is church like?
For me, it's a feeling of community. I mean, I can walk into any church and if it's a community, you can feel that. Or you can walk into other churches where you feel like an outsider. So I think it's all about community, that community that Christ wanted us to have.
Well, good morning. I read this quote recently. Family's like pizza. It's messy, might give you a stomach ache, and you can't get enough of it. Now, I don't know who originated that quote, but I think that they're really onto something. My name's Mike. I'm a member of the teaching team, and I'm one of the elders here at the church. And I have a good family, and I don't know where you're at with that, but I know for me, family can be great, except when it's not, right? And so my family, like I said, we have a great family, and I'm not just saying that because I want to brag, or because they're here listening to me today. I really do genuinely have a good family, and my family, we're happy, we love each other, we have a lot of joy in our family. Sorry, I'm having a moment here. There we go. Sorry. We have a lot of joy. We have experiences that we've shared that are difficult at times. We have hard situations, and we're not at all perfect, but we work through it. One of my favorite things about my family is we love to laugh. We love to laugh. It's one of my favorite attributes about us. And my wife and the kids, they tell me frequently that they love to hear me laugh, like those big old belly laughs that I get sometimes, which probably means I need to laugh more often, right? Sometimes I take life too seriously. And we laugh together when times are good or bad. Especially in the bad times, it's really, really helpful. One of the five of us will figure out something humorous about the situation and kind of try to make light of it and make us all laugh again. Sometimes it's inappropriate, but, most times it's good. And I also come from a good family of origin. I have two parents. They're still married. It'll be 47 years this June, which honestly, yeah, that's worth applause. And that's becoming a bit of an anomaly, right? I mean, that's not every day anymore. I have one brother. We get along great. We didn't always. That's the truth. And I don't even mean just when we were kids. We didn't always get along well. I think it was when I went off to college that we kind of started to really maybe like each other would be the right word for it, and kind of work through our differences, as it were, and we get along well now. And one of the things about my family of origin that I really appreciate is we too like to laugh. We have inside jokes, and we have funny stories and shared memories and experiences that we have together that we can look back on fondly. Like I said, I have a good, healthy family. I come from a good, healthy family. My family, our metal got tested recently. Not that it doesn't often, actually. We do get our metal tested. But specifically, about a week and a half ago, we got back from 9 days spent in Orlando, and 6 of those days were spent at the various Disney World parks down there. Okay? It was great. We had a lot of fun. We made a ton of memories. And, well, let me show you a picture of one of our first days here, okay? So this was us. Let me kind of step out of the way here. This was us at Magic Kingdom, okay? You can kind of see us in the background. There's the castle there. This is like right in the entrance. That's my oldest, my daughter, Abby, myself, my middle guy, Chase, who's 13, almost 14. That's not an optical illusion. He's taller than me. That's legit. I keep saying it's because I started drinking coffee when I was like 12 or 13. That's just what I tell myself to go to sleep at night, but whatever. My beautiful wife, Jen, and then my little guy, Jackson, in the middle. You may notice one of our little things here, we're all wearing Silly Goose shirts. My wife, that was a Christmas present to us. She got us all matching shirts. We have a group text in our family that's called the Silly Goose Chat. I think my daughter came up with it. But we were driving in, and the lady that was taking her out, paying for parking when we were going in, she said, "Silly goose shirt, that's it. You guys win the Family of the Day award for that." I thought to ask after, does that mean free parking? But I didn't think of it till after. So we were there, and we had a good time, and it was great, and it was enjoyable. But there's a lot of stress, right, with Disney. Can I just make just a recommendation to you two? If you like your family and you respect them, like even a little bit, don't go to Disney between December 25th and January 1st of any year ever. It'll turn the best families into the fiercest enemies, okay? That's for real, okay? I mean, the lines are long, it's busy, there's stress, you're running all over the place. I had to wait in line to go into the men's restroom a couple times. Now, if you've been to any sporting events or stuff, dudes, we got it pretty easy. So waiting in line at the men's restroom, I didn't know what to do with myself, right? I've never had that before. And so we saw a lot of good, healthy, happy families there, but we saw a lot of families that weren't so happy. Here's a picture of us on our last day at Disney. So there's some crossed arms and some finger pointing, some tears. Now, this is a lot of what we saw at Disney. This is real life. Now, I have to say, we did stage this picture, if you can't guess. It was funny because the photographer was super confused at first when we said we want an angry family picture, and she was kind of like, "What? Come again?" But what was interesting is she started staging it for us too. She's like, "Oh, here, you move here and you do that and you cross your arms and you cover your face like you're crying," and she went along with it. What was even funnier was after, my wife said, "Yeah, he's going to be using this as a sermon illustration in a couple weeks." She was like, "What? What does that mean?" So in that first picture, see, we're happy, right? It's all good. And maybe you can relate. Maybe you have a good and healthy family. You have good memories. You have inside jokes and great stories. You communicate well with one another. You have shared experiences that have bonded you through difficult times. You've gone through the hardships together, and you've come out on the other side, right? You've sought reconciliation and conflict. You've shown one another grace. Healthy families exist. They have problems, they have fights, they have fallouts, but they work through those things and they look out for one another. But others here, maybe you've experienced, or maybe you're currently experiencing that second family, right? There's no good memories, there's no great stories. Communication's lacking, maybe it's even non-existent. Your shared experiences have caused division and backbiting. You've gone through the hardships, and each family member has taken a different road, and they have different coping mechanisms that you don't fully understand or agree with. There's conflict, and there's no reconciliation. Grace doesn't exist in your family. My wife, she put it really well when I told her I was preparing for this message. She said, families are complicated. Healthy ones, unhealthy ones, they're complicated. And the church is also complicated. We're in the second week of our series called What is Church Like? And we're examining the different metaphors the Bible uses for describing the church. And one of the metaphors the Bible uses for describing the church is that of family. See, we often in the church speak in ways of our church family. It's a familiar term to those of you that have been in the church for a long time. And like any family, there's healthy families, there's unhealthy families, and there's also healthy family members and unhealthy family members. Like my wife said, families, they're complicated. In our families, just like in our church, healthy or unhealthy, our family, it plays a role in our life. Our church plays a role in our life. And in the same way, we have a role to play in the life of our family, in the life of our church. And the reality is there are certain realities of how our current relationship looks with our family, with our church. But there's a way that it could look, and there's a way that it should look. So when we view our family and our church, one question we should ask ourselves is this: what is the role of my family, of the church, in my life? But then what should it be? To start to answer that question, the first consideration is always going to come back to the level of health that exists in the family or the church. Everyone's answer is going to be different depending on just how your family experience has been, what your family experience is right now, and just like your church experience, what it's been, what it is currently. See, those who do have and or have come out of a healthy family and a healthy relationship with the church, they're going to answer it differently than people who have had unhealthy family and church relationships, who currently have unhealthy family and church relationships. See, for many, our family and the church, they're our people, right? They're the people that we go through life with. But for others of us, due to negative circumstances, experiences a general unwellness, we keep our family and our church, they're not a safe and hospitable place for us. For some of us, it's a choice to work through those hard things, to get to a place where history is behind us and we can move forward together through it. And for others, the choice is to keep the family and the church at arm's length to protect ourselves from further hurt or pain that's resulted from being part of that particular family or that particular church. See, our families, they've had a major role in shaping who we are and how we view things. It's hard to reshape our thinking. It's hard to go against the things that have been ingrained in us through our family, through our church. And the same is true for anybody that spent a lengthy period of time in the church. It's played a huge role in who we are, how we deal with things, and how we deal with others. See, just like families, unhealthy things and people exist in the church. And it can be hard to deal with. It can be hard to interact with and work with those people and work through those circumstances. Your family's role in your life, just like the church's role in your life, depends on the level of relationship you have with your family, with your church. So what should the role of your family or your church be in your life? So at the beginning of the service, just a few minutes ago, Eric read from Galatians chapter 6, and in verse 1 it says that if anyone is caught in transgression or sin, those who are spiritual or more mature in the faith should restore them in a spirit of gentleness. See, the role of the family and the church is to walk alongside those family members, those fellow congregants who are caught up in things that are bad for them, that are harmful, and to lovingly correct them and help them out of that trap that they're stuck in. See, whether it's a sinful behavior or it's a vice that's got somebody gripped too tightly, or both, the family's role, the church's role, is not to condemn them or write them off. When we all have members of our family, we all know members of the church that are stuck, right? They've made some poor life choices. They have addictions, all of the above. But as members of the family, as fellow members of the church, we're called to lovingly speak the truth of the situation into their lives, but then to give them the help that they need. And that's really, really hard. That's really hard. And eventually, in some circumstances, the best thing you can do, and I know this is hard to say, but it's true, is to walk away. Is to say, I can't do any more. There's nothing more I can do in this situation, and I'm done. Verse 1 even continues in saying, keep watch of yourself, lest you too be tempted. See, there can be a point of stepping away, but let me say this, it's not the immediate step. That's not the first step. Verse 2 says, bear each other's burdens. No one should ever go through any situation alone. See, families should walk through the hardships with other family members. They should help carry the load and help be a support for them. And the church should walk alongside its members and help carry the load and support them. When you're sick, you're hurt, you're lost, you're broken, you're struggling with unemployment, uncertainty, doubt, the weight of the world, the role of the family, the role of the church is to be there for you, to help you in that. And there's comfort in family, at least there should be. I realize, as I mentioned earlier, that's not everyone's experience. When a family's healthy and functioning, there should be comfort. There should be an ability to have people to go to when things are bleak. And the church, when healthy, should function in the same way. The church should be a place where you can come and rely on others when you're hurt and broken, you need help and support. See, both family and church should serve the role of helping carry the weight of life. And there's lots of different roles that the family and church both play. The last one I want to point at is that it helps ground us. In Galatians 6, verse 3, it says, if anyone thinks he's something when he's nothing, he deceives himself. Proverbs 16:18 says, pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. See, pride can be one of our biggest downfalls. And it's less about, I'm more important than you, I'm better than you. It's more about my time and my love and attention should be on myself. I deserve that. That's what pride really does. And see, spending time with members of our family that are older and wiser, that have been where we are and had our life experiences, and listening to them can do us some real good. And in the same way, spending time with some spiritually mature members of our congregation that have had our same life experiences and been where we are, and listening to that advice and knowing we don't have everything figured out can be really good for us. See, spending time with those who knew you were in diapers and when you were learning to walk and learning to talk and figure out life, not to mention have lots of embarrassing stories about you, can be really helpful. And likewise, being with church family that's known you since you were in spiritual diapers, if you will, and experiencing all those other things spiritually can often be a humbling reminder that we don't have all the answers. But see, there's another way that pride can play itself out in our lives. It's an inability or an unwillingness to accept help from those who are walking alongside us, to help us carry our burdens. See, sometimes humility means asking for and accepting help when we need it. And pride can get in the way and keep us stuck in our circumstances that we're in. I'm my own worst enemy when it comes to this sometimes. I'm preaching to the choir, if you will, right? But our family and our church can come alongside us so often and be willing to carry our burdens, but our pride, maybe our previous hurts and distrust for our family or our church can so often keep us from receiving or accepting that help or that wisdom maybe that's being offered. See, another part of this is that we also have a role to play in the life of our church, in our family. And so the question we have to ask ourselves here is, what's my role in my family, in my church? And again, what should it be? And your role in your family, your church, much like family, it comes from a place of age and experience. See, the older you are in the family, the more responsibility that you have. And the more mature you are spiritually, the more responsibility you have. See, in their families, there's grandparents and parents, kids, siblings, aunts, cousins, the occasional crazy uncle, right? Each member has a role. And they've grown into that role over time and life experience and life stage. The same is true of the church. The church family is filled with many different family members. And they have different roles, and those roles change and they grow over time and experience. See, the reality is we all have a role to play in our family and our church, and there's sometimes when it's hard to figure out where we fit in. There are days when we feel like a misfit in our own family or in our church, and sometimes we wear different hats in the family and in the church, and we try to wear them all at once, and that can be hard. So, for example, I'm a father, I'm a son, I'm a son-in-law, a grandson, a grandson-in-law. I haven't heard that till I married into my wife's family. Not that there's anything wrong with that. A brother-in-law, an uncle, a nephew, a cousin. I think I got everything figured out. I think I nailed it all there. In the church, I serve the role as an elder. I'm a part of the teaching team. I'm on the prayer team. I'm a youth sponsor in BCSM. I'm a part of a small group. I'm a partner here at the church. And each of those roles that I play in my family and in the church, they have different levels of responsibility. And they look different day to day and situation to situation, but they're all important roles. And they're all roles that I play in both of those places. And I wear all those hats at once. And it's really hard sometimes to differentiate which ones I'm supposed to wear when. And to go back to Galatians 6, verse 6, it says, "Let the one who is taught the word share all the good things with the one who teaches." Now, in the context of this verse, it's talking about financially supporting those who teach. And that's fair, and it definitely has its place. But if you'll indulge me, I want to speak more to the idea of supporting those who have invested in and do invest in us. So our role in our family and our church is to encourage and support, help take care of those in the family and the church who have poured into our lives. Our grandparents, our parents, they age and they need support, financial, physical, or otherwise. And our role is to be there, to support them, to help them, to provide for their needs. Again, this isn't everyone's experience. Our family, our grandparents, our parents, they should have invested in us and supported us. We grew and we learned, and there'll come a time when we can repay, if you will, that support. And there'll be a circumstance in which they'll need us to support and take care of them. And the same's true of the church. The leaders, and I'm not on a soapbox here as one of the leaders of the church, but the church They invest in the congregation. That's not just the people from stage. It's other elders, it's the staff, it's ministry leaders, it's small group leaders, it's the mentors that exist out there. These leaders, they need encouragement and support as well. Now, this I can speak to with a little bit of insight. It can be very lonely in leadership. And for those of you who are parents or grandparents, you know the sacrifices that you've made. You know how thankless a job that can be sometimes. See, I have this hope and dream as a parent that one day my 3 kids will come back and say, it's our turn to help you now. And one day, and similarly in the church, those that lead the church, they won't be leaders anymore. Each member of the staff won't be a staff member anymore. Each of the elders, myself included, won't be an elder anymore. Small group leaders will change positions. Ministry leaders will change. Mentors come and go, and they pass on. Opportunities change. And there'll be others in this church right now that are going to be able to step up, and hopefully you'll step up and take that role and take that responsibility and say, it's my turn to do this. In verse 7 of Galatians 6, it says, for whatever one sows, that he will also reap. Now, you've probably all heard that saying, you reap what you sow, right? In other words, we often get out of life what we put into it. Now, this isn't some sort of spiritual karma that ensures that we get good when we do good or we get bad when we do bad. If there was such an absolute spiritual law, we would all be surely headed for damnation. But what it comes back to is investment, right? If we invest in our family, we stand a better chance of reaping a good and healthy relationship with them. The more we invest in the church and the people of the church, the more likely we are to have a healthy and good relationship with them. And like I said, the more likely, this isn't 100% foolproof by any means. See, there's some that have invested years and given a ton to their family. They've loved them well, they've supported them, and they've bore burdens, and they still struggle with disjointed, dysfunctional family. And there are some who have invested so much in the church, given time and energy, financial support, emotional support, and they've been burned. They've been beaten down and ostracized by the church, and it's caused some to leave the church, or even worse, their faith. See, families, they're imperfect units filled with imperfect people. Churches are imperfect families filled with imperfect people. Both families and churches, they hurt their members sometimes. Both can isolate and alienate its members at times. Both can be broken sometimes. Sometimes families are wrong. Sometimes the church is wrong. See, both can be wrong in how they handle situations and how they handle people, how they view things, resolve conflict, and show grace. In Hebrews 10, 24 through 25, it says, and let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. See, our role as a family, as a part of a church, is to encourage our family, encourage our church to love one another and to do good. What can you do to encourage your family to do better? What can you do to encourage your church to do better? And I know it's really, really easy to just neglect those things that you see are wrong. I totally get that. And part of it is, it's hard to discern. Am I wrong? Is my family wrong? Is my church wrong? Part of it's really hard to come to terms with thinking maybe my family's wrong, maybe the church is wrong. And part of it's figuring out, what do I do with this now that I know this, right? See, it's really easy to walk away and start over, leaving your family behind, going to a different church, and honestly, I mean this, sometimes that could be the healthiest, the most mature thing that you can do. Sometimes your family can be so destructive, and it's an unhealthy place for you to be a part of. Sometimes the church can be a place of destruction for you, not a place of building up. Instead of growing in your faith, the church has caused you to question or even lose your faith. And that's real life. That's not hyperbolic speaking. It happens every day in families, and it happens every day in churches. And honestly, we're not above or immune to that here at BCC. See, we said for years, you stick around the church and you get involved long enough, you'll get hurt. And please hear me, I'm not advocating or condoning that by any means. In fact, it pains me to have to say that out loud. I wish for so much different for families, but especially for the church. See, but whatever your situation is with your family or your church, can I ask you, don't give up without a fight. Don't give up without encouraging your family or your church to do the right thing. Encourage your family to good works and to love. Encourage your church to love and good works. See, it can be hard and it can disillusion you to challenge and call out that racist family member for the things that they say and believe. And it's hard and it's scary to challenge that member of your church family to reconcile with that brother or sister that they're in conflict with. But find your voice. Be the change that your family, that your church needs. So your family and your church, they have a role in your life. And you have a role in the life of your family and your church's life. And as established, families are imperfect. Church is imperfect. So what does your current relationship with your family or church look like? What could it look like? But ultimately, what should it look like? See, I don't know what all your relationships are with your families. If they're healthy, if they're unhealthy. Maybe you're distant from family. Maybe there's little to no communication with your family or maybe even specific family members. Maybe something traumatic happened to your family. There's a history of abuse or other things that have caused you to be broken or distrustful of others. If that's your experience, I'm very sorry that that's what you have experienced or that's what you're experiencing. But maybe you have a great family and it's healthy and you love each other, you communicate really well, you laugh a lot, you really enjoy and support one another. And if that's your experience, I'm really happy. I really am. It's a great thing. I said at the beginning, I have a great family and I come from a great family. It's a wonderful thing. Likewise, I don't know what everyone's relationship with the church is like. I don't know what everyone's experience with church is. See, maybe the church has caused you pain. It's hurt you in some way. Maybe you felt unloved, left out, attacked, and alienated by the church. Maybe you felt the church turned its back on you in a time of need. And all of these things have caused you to be distrusting of the church, of Christ followers, maybe even of Jesus himself. And truthfully, if that's been your experience, I'm sorry. I am. It's a horrible thing. Maybe you've grown in your faith. Maybe you've experienced some connections, been blessed beyond belief, had mountaintop experiences in your faith because you're part of the church. And if that's where you're at, that's awesome and that's wonderful, and I am so happy to hear that. So your experience with your family, your current situation with your family, if it's broken or it's distant, it can change. If your relationship was good, it can get better. Your relationship with the church, it can be one of hurt and disdain, distrust and distance, and it too can change. And if your relationship with the church is good, it can still get better. See, we say this a lot here at Bridgetown, and we say it because it's true. With Jesus, better is possible. People are imperfect. Families can be broken, and church can and will hurt you because people are broken and families are broken. And churches and families, they're filled with hurt people. And hurt people hurt other people. But Jesus isn't imperfect. Jesus is perfect. Jesus isn't broken. He's whole and he can make you whole. Jesus won't hurt you. He won't alienate you. He invites you to be a part of his family. See, as often as this has been said from the stage, either by myself or by others when I've preached or done community life or heard it said, I've thought of that phrase, with Jesus better as possible, exclusively for unbelievers who needed to hear that message. And that message, with Jesus better as possible, is certainly a core message for unbelievers to hear and understand, but I've so often undercut its value for those of us who have been following Jesus for years, and I include myself in that. See, I've so often thought of those of us who follow Jesus, we know better is possible with Jesus. But how often do we live that out? Like I said, I'm preaching to the choir. I'm speaking myself as much as anybody else here. See, I very recently was struck by a truth that really caused me to reevaluate everything in my life. The truth is, I'm going to be gone someday. That's not a light bulb moment. I wasn't living in some delusional place where I thought I was going to live forever. But what made me stop in my tracks and reevaluate everything was that all the things that I do, all those roles that I mentioned in my family and my church, they're going to stop one day. See, I used to think that the most important thing I'd ever do, the greatest role that I would ever play was being that of an educator. I love being a teacher, and I know I'm making an impact every day. And there's been other times when I've thought the greatest role that I'd ever fill was being an elder here at this church. And I know that it's an important role. It's a position I understand the gravity, and I don't take it lightly. Oftentimes I've concluded being a parent, that's going to be the most important work that I'll ever do. It's definitely the hardest. But it's the most rewarding title I have, that of dad. And there have been times when I was sure that my most important role in life was going to be that of husband to my wife, Jen. And I to love her and live my life sacrificially for her well-being, which I do so imperfectly. And to love her like Jesus loved the church, which I do so imperfectly. I love my wife more than I have words to adequately express, but it's not the most important role I'm ever going to play. All of these roles are extremely important. But what caused me to reevaluate all of this, what struck me in thinking through this was, I know Jesus. I have a relationship with Jesus, and that's the most important role I'm ever going to play on this earth. The most important purpose I'm ever going to have is to reflect and glorify Jesus with all that I am, with all that I do. See, no purpose or role will ever supersede that. And because I have that relationship with Jesus, I'm aware that better is possible. Yet I ask myself often, how often do I tap into that better? How often do we, who know Jesus, tap into that better? Our families, our church, it could all look different. It could all look better when we make the realization and live out that truth that with Jesus better is possible. C.S. Lewis has this great quote about Jesus doing better than we can expect in us. He says, imagine yourself as a living house. God comes in to rebuild that house. At first, perhaps you can understand what he's doing. He's getting the drains right and stopping the leaks in the roof and so on. You knew that those jobs needed doing, and so you're not surprised. But presently, he starts knocking the house about in a way that hurts abominably and does not seem to make any sense. What on earth is he up to? The explanation is that he's building quite a different house from the one that you thought of. Throwing out a new wing here, putting on an extra floor there, running up towers, making courtyards. You thought you were being made into a decent little cottage, but he's building a palace. He intends to come and live in it himself. See, our family history, it's not going to change. Our current family dynamics, dysfunctionality, and challenges, they might not change. Our history in the church, the experiences we have in the church, we can't go back and change those. Going forward, again, I hate to admit this, you're still going to get hurt. We're not going to agree with all the things that happen. We're going to have the opportunity to get jaded by all of it, families and church. But with Jesus, better is possible. When you encounter and have a relationship with Jesus, it's possible to have better relationships, to deal with pain differently and better, to disagree differently and better. When we say yes to Jesus, it changes us. We should become people who love better, offer more grace, and work to reconcile broken relationships. We can seek better in our families, even as just how we choose to react and relate and be present in our families. And over time, the choices that we make to be and look more like Jesus, maybe that can affect our family. Maybe it can change how they react, how they relate, the things that they think and the ways they act. And the same can be true for the church. We take the posture of following Jesus. We can seek better for our relationship with the church and better for the church itself. We're able to love others better, show others more grace, reconcile broken relationships, listen better, have better conversations, especially when we don't see eye to eye on issues. See, having that relationship with Jesus can make each one of us better individually and hopefully make the church better collectively. Galatians 6, 9, and 10 gives us the picture of what our family and our church should look like. In verse 9, it says, "Do not grow weary of doing good, for in due time we will reap if we do not give up." Our family should always seek to do good to and for you as a member of the family. Likewise, the church should consistently keep doing good to and for you as a member of the church. In verse 10, it says, as we have opportunity, let us do good to everyone, and especially to those who are in the household of faith. Other versions of verse 10, it says, those who are in the family of believers. See, our family and our church should pay special attention and care for other members of the family, for other believers who are a part of the church. That's what our family and our church should look like, a place where we're loved, we're cared for and good is done to and for us. Our family and our church should seek reconciliation and conflict, stand in an unflinching posture of grace, and should seek the good of one another's. Families are imperfect, and they have a ways to go before they're going to look like they should. The church is imperfect. It's got a ways to go before it's going to look like it should. But as we strive to reconcile conflict, have a posture of grace, seek the good of each other, be reminded that not only are we capable of being the impetus of these things, we've also received and continue to receive these things as the beneficiaries of Christ's finished work and provision of salvation. So in a moment, we're going to enter a time of musical worship, and we're going to sing the song, Goodness of God. And when we're singing this song, may we recall those times when we saw the Lord come through for us, when we saw him work in surprising and unexpected ways. We're also going to sing, Lord, I Need You. And as we reflect and remember experiencing the Lord's goodness, may we continue to recognize that we still need more of the Lord as we sing that. See, whether it's your family or your church, don't give up. Keep sowing so that one day you may reap the benefits that come from continuing to do the next right thing. Do the things that you need to do to be a part of the change and improvement in your family and in your church. See, history can't change. Relationships may be broken now, but with a relationship with Jesus, we can do better. We can be better. We can make those relationships better because we have Jesus in our lives consistently pushing us, reminding us that with him, better is possible and we can be better. Let's pray. Lord, I just thank you for the reminder that even though things are broken, families are broken, and the church can be broken sometimes, that they're sitting out there today are broken relationships, people that are hearing this message and saying, that's me, that's my family, that's me here today at this church, at Bridgetown Church of Christ. I know histories can't change, Father, but moving forward in life, things can change when we put ourselves in a place of saying we know that we have a relationship with you and things can be better because of that. Father, may we approach that. May we take that posture of saying, because I know Jesus and because I have this relationship with Jesus, I'm going to strive to do better in my family and be a presence for them. I'm going to strive to do better in my church and be a presence for them. I'm going to try to live out a life that shows with Jesus better as possible and take all those things that are broken and try to restore them. In other words, be the bigger person in situations where we need to. May we be reminded that you are good, that you are full of love and grace, that you don't hurt us or alienate us, that you invite us to be a part of your family. May we accept that invitation, Father, and live our lives differently because of it. In Jesus' name. In John 17, the chapter right before John's account of Jesus' arrest, which led to the crucifixion, Jesus prayed for unity amongst his believers. I think we can all agree that we have a lot of work to do to be unified even as Christ followers. Maybe we can't even agree on that. But we must not lose heart, not lose sight of the goal that we should be unified. We, the church, should be a unified family that seeks to be loving and gracious, seeks to do good and look out for the good for one another. This is the last prayer that John records from Jesus before he's arrested. He's put through the various trials, and then he's sentenced to death on a cross. See, Jesus knew that the unity of the church would be important then, and it's important now. So we have a common goal. We have a common message, the good news of Jesus' death and resurrection. And that allows us to become a part of God's family and have eternal life when we accept the invitation to be part of that family. Each week, as a family, as a church, we gather together to share life. One of the privileges we get is to share the shared experience of partaking of the Lord's Supper or communion together. See, together we remember what Jesus did for us, the sacrifice that he made so that we could be called sons and daughters of God, so that we could be invited to be a part of God's family together. If you have your packet, you can take it now. If you don't, they're available in the back. You can grab one. So we take communion together as a family. We're part of God's family together as brothers and sisters in Christ. We can do this because of Jesus. So take and eat of the bread and be reminded that we're part of God's family because Jesus had his body broken for us. And take and drink the juice. And be reminded as you stand amongst your brothers and sisters in Christ that Jesus' blood was shed for our sin. And it's bonded all those who have accepted the invitation to be part of God's family. See, his death and resurrection, it's unified all those who are part of his family. As we spend time together in musical worship, let's remember that we're worshiping together as a family. Let's take the posture of a family, of a church who loves well, who offers grace, who reconciles in the face of conflict, and who seeks the good of one another. Let's stand together and worship.